From Central Indiana's #1 news source, this is Fox 59 Tonight.
Good evening. Welcome to Fox 59 Tonight. I'm Kate. We really appreciate you joining us. Downloading the news Fox 59 We've talked about this story and that man, the scandal in the mayor's office. It is the story that just won't seem to go away. And I had somebody ask me just recently, scandal in the mayor's office, what is the big deal? Why do we keep hearing about this story? Why doesn't it seem to die after the council released a report that said that the mayor's office followed protocol? They followed what was written in the current city policy. Could they have done more things? Yes. Are there things that should be adjusted? Probably. But then the story didn't end there. We've had people thrown out of council meetings. We've had calls for the mayor to resign, both from Republicans and from Democrats. And now it's even escalated to where we have city county councilors who are losing their spot on the Democratic caucus, and then they get it back because they too asked for the mayor to resign. This is a story that we've been covering the entire time that this has happened, and it has changed consistently every week, sometimes multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day. One person who has been covering this from the very beginning and has been at every single meeting of this and has been breaking some stories on this case in the mayor's office is our friend Abdul-Hakim Shabazz of ndpolitics.org. Fresh off a taping from In Focus, so you'll see him there. We're getting a 2-for-1 deal with Abdul today. You've been a busy man.
Just a tad bit busy, just a tad. And the thing was, I was originally planning to take the summer off. You know, we after the legislature, like, no, I need to take a little bit of a break, take care of my health, I had some blood pressure issues a couple years ago, and I'm in the hospital. So there I was in my backyard, having a cigar, watching my dogs play, and streaming my modern rock alternative music out of Seattle, and then my phone rang. And the rest, they say, is history.
And you have not sat down since.
No, not really, no.
And
by the way, still trying to be a lawyer too, by the way.
Correct.
My other day job.
Correct. And you host a radio show.
And I host a radio show, yeah.
And you run a website. You do a lot. I think you're up there with me when it comes to jobs and different things that you do.
I'm the hardest working man in show business.
Yes. Woo! At least you're getting a vacation. I don't have one planned, but I need one. There's no time to take a break because I did try to take a little time off last week. Then I got lost in everything that has happened in the mayor's office. At last check, I had Russ McQuaid sitting in the seat that you're sitting in when the mayor said that he was wrong about he got a piece of the story wrong with Thomas Cook working for the city versus working for Joe Hogsett's campaign. And we were like, okay, now that happened. Now we're going to hear from Lauren Roberts because maybe she's going to come back to this next city county council meeting. But now we're not even talking about her. There's a whole new list of characters that have been added to the show, like Counselor Carlino that people maybe haven't heard of, but you've heard of now. What's going on, Abdul? Where do we start with this?
Well, the thing is, you got to keep in mind is this is a story that changes rapidly. Like you said in the introduction, literally hour by hour, minute by minute, which I would not be surprised if by the time we're done with this podcast, the stories change. And by the time the podcast airs, the stories change again. By the time the Sunday in Focus comes on, guess what? The stories changed again. So we need to keep that in mind. I read a little column called The Cheat Sheet. It's sort of gossip, rumor, innuendo, kind of like a sort of a Washington Whispers kind of thing in D.C. And one thing I put in my cheat sheet this past week, which you can get on indiepolitics.org, by the way, so shameless plug.
There's the website.
I put in a timeline. And it's basically started from Sunday of last week until this past Friday. And the story had literally changed. There was a new development. It was Carlino calling for the mayor to resign, step down, and then she kind of pulled back a little bit. Then before that, it was the people getting kicked out of the council meeting and the Fisher Phelps report. So literally, this story has changed so often, so frequently, because normally a story has a shelf life maybe like 1 or 2 days in the news business, and that's it. This has been ongoing continuously.
It started, as you said, let's go back. So there was the report that came from Fisher Phillips out of Chicago that was investigating the actions of Thomas Cook for sexual harassment and having inappropriate relationships with people who worked under him while he was this report while he was working for the city. Because we can get into That's where we split all the hairs about was he working for the city, was he working for the campaign. Up until this point, there has not been Mayor Joe Hogsett has not been accused of any wrongdoing, nor has his office. That report cleared them of uh, any wrongdoing and how they handled the harassment claims of Thomas Cook. With that said,
Well, the report said the reports basically said the mayor's office followed the law, but they could have done better.
correct. I was going to say, with that said, they're not out of the clear with
Right.
what they could have done.
It's like when my mother say, "Abdul, don't you ever let me catch you doing that again." Okay, mom, don't worry, you won't.
Right.
You won't catch me. You didn't
Right.
say don't do it. You said don't let me catch you do it.
Mhm.
So it's very tricky. You got to sort of like I said, words matter.
Mhm.
You have to be very careful as to how how the report is interpreted,
Mhm.
because you're right. They did find no criminal wrongdoing in the mayor, but said the culture needed to be changed. But then there's been other questions like, did the report really look at everything the report should have looked at?
Mhm.
Did they look at other alleged sexual harassment in the city of Indianapolis, or did they not? And so, and what'd you get for $500,000, by the way? Because that's what this report costs,
Right.
literally.
And some folks are saying that this report is not telling the whole story.
Exactly.
That in itself caused fallout with uh, Lauren Roberts, who went to go speak at a city council. Was that a full city council meeting or a committee meeting?
That was a committee meeting.
Committee meeting that was going to talk about paying for that investigation. She got up to speak to say that uh, what is in this report is not the full story. There's lots of details that are left out. That went downhill, and then this happened. Of course, I just clicked on the wrong video, but there is video that we've been showing you of Lauren Roberts being pulled out of the city council meeting by the sheriff's deputies. That then turned into a whole nother story. What happened there? What did we miss?
Not much. What I thought was interesting was that all this could have been avoided had the council president Vapos, and Vap and I have a very good relationship. We get along well. I think he's trying to drop the ball on this one though.
Mhm.
Is that instead of just basically giving Lauren Roberts give her 5 minutes, say
Mhm.
her piece, and then she leaves and goes away.
Mhm.
They didn't. He stuck to that 2 minute rule, and by sticking to the 2 minute rule, then had the sheriff's deputies escort her out of the building. That became the whole story,
Mhm.
because you got the yelling, the screaming, the profanity, the whole 9 yards. It was like watching an old episode of Jerry Springer.
Mhm.
It's literally what it was. That was right there in the middle of all of it. Like, and if that looked bad on television, it actually looked worse in the council chambers. Like, this is not going to end well at all,
I
and
w-
it didn't.
I was listening to an interview with Allie Brown, who was on the Black Briefing podcast, and she said in that moment she shut down because people were asking her, "Why didn't you intervene and stop this? And why didn't VOP do anything more?" Can you talk about more about that moment to where she's saying it was so much going on, I didn't know what to do.
And I could see that sort of response. I take some issue with Ali Brown accusing Krista Carlino of triggering her and her past history.
Mhm.
Well, first of all, she didn't. No, that was on you. Triggered yourself,
Mhm.
with all due respect.
Mhm.
Number two, the other thing is that someone should have sat down before the meeting started. Like, okay, here's how this is going to work. What happens if the women want to speak? Do we give them extra time? And it was extremely short sightedness on the council's part to not be prepared for
Mhm.
what happened.
Well, and it sounded like from listening to Allie Brown, it sounded like they knew there was a potential that people could show up, but they didn't know for sure that they were going to show up. But the point is, even with something like this, why don't you have a plan?
Right. And number two, by the way, they showed up.
They did.
So like we didn't know if they were or weren't. You always assume that they will.
Mhm.
You always assume sort of the worst case scenario. Like, okay, if they show up, what do we do? Are they escorted out? Do we give them extra time to speak? And had it's like I told you before we just started the podcast today. I'm a big Star Wars dork,
Mhm.
and in the first Star Wars movie, when Darth Vader meets Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader says, you're a master of evil, blah blah blah, and Obi-Wan Kenobi says, Darth Vader, if you strike me down, I should become more powerful than you can imagine. And literally, that's what happened by escorting these women, forcing Elise Shock and Lauren Roberts, these women, to be forced out of the council chambers. That's all anybody talked about,
Mhm.
and that's all that we played over and over again
Mhm.
is that videotape of the women being forced out of the council chambers. By doing that, the Council Democrats made these women more powerful than they could possibly ever imagine.
Mhm.
Because a woman was a victim of sexual assault, abuse, you name it, or sexual improprieties, is being escorted out of the building by sheriff's deputies.
Mhm.
Think about that.
It didn't look good.
No, it did.
And if you're so then that turned the conversation into, okay, you've got Vop Ossoly sitting there who now it looks like he's enabling this and shutting down a survivor so that she can't speak.
Yes, and this also ties into. I know it's still a long long way out. We got another election to get through, 2027.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would argue, I won't say that Vop was. I would say Vop was probably the Democratic front runner
Mm-hmm.
in the mayor's race. I think he's still. I think he's still in the mayor's race, but I don't think he's a front runner by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's now wide open.
Mm-hmm. You thought he was a front runner
Yes.
because Vop that's a name that I've heard since the beginning of time who would run for um, a mayor's race and not a whole lot. There haven't been anything bad about Vop, and now you've got this.
Right.
Doesn't look good.
And
That's
this is
not
what.
helpful.
And this is what most people. This will register in the minds of most people. This things like the budget and
Mm-hmm.
mass transit. Now, these are all important issues, but stuff like this, sex sells.
Mm-hmm.
It does, and that's why this is on the forefront of everybody's mind. My wife, who can't stand politics, and when I start talking on the phone, closes the door and goes outside.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, she throws me outside. uh, she was like, "Abdul, what is going on here? What's up with Vop?"
This was a story that somebody, if you're not paying attention, this one caught your attention at least for a little bit.
Exactly.
So, okay, so then you have that night, and then we thought Lauren Roberts would come back. There was speculation that she would speak maybe via Zoom at another council meeting. That didn't happen. Why was that?
Basically, she lives out in Denver, Colorado. It was a matter of she had to crowdfund to get here the first time around, and to fly back and forth. I don't know if you've flown lately, but it's kind of expensive.
Right.
And also, when you can testify via Zoom or other means, I think that's a lot easier, more efficient for her.
Correct.
To do.
Which we thought we would see her by Zoom, but we didn't.
Right. And that was the other thing too. At the first committee hearing, at the first investigative committee hearing, which was a disaster. They should have. First of all, the attorney from Fisher Phillips did her presentation from Chicago via Zoom. Like, I just paid $500,000.
You can't come
for this. Pardon my French. Get your ass down here.
Right.
And we'll schedule a time. And the fact that no one could get the report, until the actual meeting. And so, okay, if you just got the report 2 seconds ago, then how can I expect you to do some sort of deep dive analysis of it? That to me makes no sense.
So from there, we think, okay, story's ending. She doesn't show back up.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. There's more. If memory serves after that, then there is, because now everybody's trying to figure out how to respond and who blame. And so Bob sends out a statement apologizing. And then we get into the calls for more resignation. So we had first Democrats calling for the mayor to resign. And then we had some Republicans join the ranks. And for the most part, I even had Michael Paul Hart on the day after one of those council meetings, just so happened to be here. And at the time, they had no interest in asking for the mayor to resign. They were like, what's the point? The votes aren't there. There's nothing we can do. We don't even have that power. So let's figure out how we can just better write the city's policies. Then you had more Republicans jump in and say, okay, the mayor should resign. And all that seemed to pretty much just kind of go by the wayside until Krista Carlino then asks for the mayor to resign. Explain what happened there and why this one got a different response.
Okay. First of all, and Michael Paul Hart's right. The Republicans call for the mayor to resign. He's not going to resign. The council has no authority to impeach the mayor. The legislature does, however, can impeach the mayor. And also, too, by the way, I did some research in the law. A private citizen can actually file litigation to have the mayor removed from office. It takes 5. They have to have 5 plaintiffs though.
Okay.
To sue. So the citizen of Indianapolis, John Schmidt, blah 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 blah. No, these all versus Joe Hogsett. To have Joe Hogsett removed from office from that perspective. So resign, no. Impeach, yes, with a caveat. Legislature, private citizen. So there's that. On when Krista Carlino called for the mayor to step down, I could tell that when she read her statement at that Administration and Finance Committee, like there's something she's about to do something here.
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure what it is. Then she said the mayor should step down. Like, whoa, that's the story for today. And so from that perspective, uh, then she was then she got yelled at for not letting her caucus know that she was gonna do that ahead of time, and that she kind of apologized for. But before, because the question was she kicked out of the caucus? Was she back in the caucus? What's going on? And I tell people the answer is all of the above.
Because you first reported it, I think that night, she had been kicked out of the caucus, but then by the next morning, it was, well, she's back in the caucus.
Well, what happened was, uh, first of all, Carlina wasn't in the room, and it was an overwhelming vote. Only 2 Democrats actually voted to not kick her out of the caucus. She was kicked out, but she was kicked out with a caveat. It is you're out of the caucus until you publicly apologize. So when I said she was kicked out of the caucus, she was. Then she issued the public apology, and then she was back in. So, yes, I was right, but like I said, this has been a fast-moving story. So literally, by the time I wrote that at 9:30 at night, I get a call at 7 o'clock in the morning. Hey, Abdul, what's going on here? And I'll also tell you this: behind closed doors, the Council of Democrats, they may present a somewhat united front on the public. They are very divided right now. Not happy with the mayor, not really happy with Bob and how things were handled. And I also got to the point I was told that a couple of them were like going to call me. Like, I'm calling Abdul. Like, what are you calling me for? Well, I know why you're calling me, and it feeds into my theory that Republicans will share information with me to show them how smart they are. Democrats will share information with me to screw each other.
And that is the other part that has really highlighted the dysfunction that there is right now in the Democrat Party, because you've got the Democrats who are fighting amongst each other, like this whole Carlino thing, and of course the mayor's a Democrat as well. But it's taken um, this entire own story in itself, and it's showing that if you are on the Democrat caucus and you disagree or you go against the group, you will be like Jesse Brown and you'll be out of the caucus, or Christy Carlino, even temporarily, you'll be out of the caucus.
And that has consequences for not necessarily 26, but definitely has consequences for 27. Because I was told that Jesse Brown's putting together maybe to get some folks to run the primary against some of the Democrats. And also keep in mind, part of the reason why a lot of Democrats didn't speak out against the mayor was because the mayor controls the purse strings. Because the mayor's got millions of dollars in his political campaign war chest that he can use to either fund the Democrats if you're my friend, or I can fund a primary opponent against you if you're my enemy. So everybody's been wondering, why is the mayor out there raising money? Like, this is why. Occam's razor. Simple explanation is what it is. The mayor likes having control. And money in politics usually dictates who can control what.
So Democrats can't get their thing together. The Republicans are like, hey, we're just going to keep marching forward while they are spinning in circles here. So did Carlino lose her spot on the caucus because she went against the mayor, or because she didn't talk to the caucus about it?
I think it was more. I think it was the second, or more the latter.
That she didn't talk to the caucus.
Yeah, I think that was more about it, because Jesse Brown called for the mayor to resign, but he was kicked out of the caucus ahead of time.
Right.
There were a couple other Democrats who were leaning towards asking the mayor to step down. And if you're going to kick somebody out, and think about this, once again, it's all about optics. Think about this: if Christy Carlino were to call for the mayor to step down, they kick her out of the caucus. Like, okay, are you on the side of the survivors?
Correct.
Or whose side are you on?
Correct. That, and the fact that she is, one of her roles on the caucus is that she is in charge of this committee.
Well, was in charge of the investigation committee.
Was in charge of the investigation committee, overseeing the entire Hogsett Cook investigation. So then it looks like, okay, if you're pulling her off, what does she know that you don't want her to tell everybody?
Right. And the other thing too is I've been getting part of what I do is I have access to a lot of things about people's personal lives that I'd rather not know, to be really honest with you, because to me it has nothing to do with the conversation. However, I've been fed things about Miss Carlino's personal life that I thought, like, hey, what does this got to do with anything?
Mhm.
And so I asked her about it. So I could go, very little of that is actually true. Like, thank you. Like, okay, we're not talking about it because it has really nothing to do with what's going on here today.
So now she's back in. Does she have her duties back?
The last time I checked, as we record this, like I said, please don't, folks, this could change by the time this podcast is over.
Mhm.
The last time I checked, she was still not. She wasn't. She hadn't been removed from any committees yet, but she did lose her chairmanship.
Do we know who replaces her on that chair?
Not yet. I'm assuming the Democrats just had another caucus this week, so I'm assuming that the decision is probably made sometime this week or announced after 4th of July.
So let me ask you, why are people? Because I've had folks like Greg Merriweather and Samantha Douglas in here just to give us some thoughts on why they are asking for the mayor to resign. Why are people telling you they want the mayor to resign? When I talked to them here in the studio, they were like, "It's not any one thing; it's all of these different things."
Well, for a lot of people, it's this issue. Now, for other folks, it's been the night of the riots, where it was the mayor.
Mhm.
Does the mayor have other personal issues that he's been dealing with?
Mhm.
The whole Thomas Cook thing. So it's lots of little issues, but I think this is the one that's very easy for people to get their arms around. It's like, hey, you're the mayor. These people were your employees. You should have taken steps. Should have got rid of Thomas Cook and take care of this right away.
Mhm.
And for that dereliction of duty, you're in trouble. Now, here's something else to keep in mind. Here's another part to this story as well. The mayor and Thomas Cook are both licensed attorneys, because just like I am. However, they're on what's called inactive status, which means they're not really practicing, but they're still licensed attorneys. But even if you're on what's called inactive status, you can still lose your law license. Just ask former Attorney General Todd Rokita. Just kidding. I shall not be so lucky.
That's one of your good friends, that Todd Rokita.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if a complaint's filed with the disciplinary commission to remove to remove Joe Hogstead's law license, well, because you can be disciplined for lots of reasons, and this type of behavior, even though it didn't go directly to your law practice or practice of law, goes to your character and reputation. Thomas Cook definitely is going to be on the hook for what he did, and Joe possibly on the hook because Joe is his supervisor. And under the rules of professional conduct, it's pretty clear that a lawyer who knows of a subordinate lawyer who's doing some bad things has a duty to report. And Hogstead didn't report. So Hogstead's Joe's law license, even though I haven't really used it, could be on the hook as well.
Abdul, let's take a commercial break here, but we've got to talk some more about the part we haven't talked about, and that's the connection of Thomas Cook and Joe Hogstead. Good friends, but there also been some text messages that Joe Hogstead sent, or Roberts is saying, "Hey, that's not in this report." Some would say, "Well, they don't belong in the report," or "They do belong in the report." That also just created controversy in the system. Just stepped up. More Fox 59 tonight. Coming right up.